Good afternoon, all my friends. At least I think it's afternoon here in Portland anyway. Yeah, it looks like it's 12:30. It's Sunday, February 11th, 2018. This morning I got up and I just decided that the kids are gone. I've got a quiet moment. I'm going to make a video about synchronicities. You know, as a father, I'm usually here with my kids. The Friday night my mom picked them up to stay at her house for 2 nights. And for the last 2 nights we went to see Dark Star Orchestra, which is a Grateful Dead cover band. The thing about Dark Star is that this cover band has been playing longer than the Grateful Dead had been around when Jerry Garcia died. I mean, these guys have been playing for I think 25 years or more, maybe 30 years. It blows my mind. They were, playing Dead cover songs at the same time the Dead was still playing, but they're a phenomenal band. And I had a couple friends come over. One of my best friends, Scott, came over and he stayed the night for 2 nights. And I remember when he was here, and this is leading into the synchronicity, video here. Because that's what I wanted to talk about. But it was really interesting because I said, what's funny is I made a video the other day, a Carpo Q&A video, where I said people can ask me whatever they want, and I was going to make a response where I just answered the questions. And I thought that would be fun to make a video with my bro and say have him sitting next to me and read off the questions and have him answer the questions for me to see how well he knows me as a friend, kind of thing. He said he would do it, but I think he kind of chickened out, didn't want to be on camera. And that's the problem I often have with friends. If I'm like, hey, let's make a video. If you haven't spoken to a camera, it's an awkward thing. And when I first started this channel, it took me a while to get used to like speaking to the camera like a person in a way, or an audience. So anyhow, we didn't end up doing that. But then I got up this morning, I turned on YouTube, and in my feed was Blaze Harmon had made a video where he'd uploaded one where him and his friend, and they were talking, and it was just along the lines of what I've been thinking. And I started, I've been pondering this idea of synchronicities within the YouTube community for quite a while now. And it's not something that I've just come up with out of the blue, nor is it something I've overlooked, but it's not something that, it's something that I've seen reflected in other people. I won't, I don't even mention it, but others are like, why? How come every time you upload a video, it's something that I'm thinking about? And I'm like, well, that happens to me all the time. In fact, I think we've talked about this before. Aaron Gawk, or Gawkian, I'm not sure if it's Gawk or Gawkian, Aaron, because it's different on the Facebook, but always has wonderful videos and, gets into kind of the deeper, darker parts of the psyche as far as, not dark as far as bad or, but the things that people don't want to talk about. The what-ifs, the wanting to belong, the who are we kind of existential questions that we have. And to me, it's never about the subject matter as much as the honesty of the person, or the integrity of the person, the method which they're trying to convey. I don't just listen to philosophers or intellects or great speakers. I also watch channels from people who are half my age, who maybe some gangster type dudes, or maybe some heavy, Hesher type heavy metal dudes. I've been through so many different stages in my life that I just see people. When I see a person, I look at their intentions and the type of personality they convey. For example, there's a guy the other day who said that me and Menthol, we'd been talking back and forth, and he said that by watching our channels, it gave him, inspired him to start his own channel and gave him, the kind of courage to do, just kind of an extra little boost. And I went and checked out his channel, and it was a Steel City show. And, the dude's speaking the truth. He's speaking how he feels in his heart. I think that's awesome. That we need more of that, on YouTube and elsewhere. But the synchronicities, the coincidences that come up when I'm watching other people's videos, I'm just like, yep, that's just what I was just thinking. Yep, that's something that I needed to do. Maybe I'll have a friend who might have an issue with, say, depression, and then I'll see a video pop up randomly about depression. It's really interesting the way these things work. Now, of course, to some degree, we are marketed to, and I understand the algorithms. They search out things that are relating to what we're talking about. If we're watching a bunch of videos on depression, then we go look at a YouTube feed and it has videos on depression, we can't be like, oh wow, that's amazing. How did it know? I mean, that's a different thing altogether. But there are some interesting things that happen. Thinking about a friend, and then they call you, and A lot of people like to just kind of blow it off as just chance, and others say, no, there are no such thing as coincidences. It's all synchronicity. Just so people understand, the word synchronicity wasn't even coined until the 1900s. In fact, it was in the 20s when Carl Jung came up with it, but not until really the 1950s when he promoted it, the idea. And even in his mind, he knew, you know, as a psychologist, that you can't explain away all these things that happen to us. That some things, it's almost like nature's trying to get our attention. And for a while, I was using this as a way for a kind of guide to see where am I at in life. For example, when you see 1111 or 333 everywhere, numbers. A couple of years back, I made videos about this and said, well, instead of just wondering what they mean or if they mean anything at all or ignoring them, I wrote down what the numbers meant to me in a book. So I'll say, well, if I see 333, maybe the universe is consciously aware, or maybe it's just my subconscious picking up on things that I see out of the corner of my eye. But it's kind of like using a scrying, you know, a bowl of water for scrying, or a crystal ball. You're not really looking at an actual vision in this ball or this water. What you're doing is you're allowing your subconscious to flow in and fill in the gaps of things you don't know, that you do know subconsciously, but you don't know consciously. And I believe that we are transmitters of information that our brains can pick up and tune into more than we're aware of. And sometimes these bring in synchronicities, which, you know, even Carl Jung said that they, you know, they're things that are very difficult to explain away, and they tend to have very meaningful, you know, results to people if they pay attention to them. Now, this goes along with the power of intention and manifest destiny and all this, and the idea that some people take it too far, and they say, well, you know, all I have to do is just look for patterns and numbers. The thing is, you have to be able to decipher what that means, or find a way to make use of it. You know, if we watch a video that somebody makes and they mention something that we were just talking about, okay, that's great that we have a connection there, or that somebody else was thinking the same thing, but so what? Because what we don't notice is the thousands of times that we hear someone speak when it has nothing to do with what we were thinking. So we can go all day and talk to dozens of people, and then the one person who says one thing that happens to relate to what we were just thinking, we pick up on that. Because we are pattern-seeking creatures. That's what we do. Humans evolved to observe patterns in their environment. That is like our, you know, that's what keeps us going. The ability to, if you hear a rustling in the bushes, the question of, don't wonder whether it's a tiger or a little, you know, varmint. You want to run. You want to be protected. You want to understand not just, you know, visual cues, but also audio cues. But when it comes to the deeper part of our psyche, there seems to be something that's triggered in certain experiences that is above and beyond just a coincidence. Something that says, wait, there's more to this. And we can choose to either embrace that or we can ignore it. Now, there are plenty of people out there who just believe everything that happens is a coincidence, and that there's nothing more to it. And there's nothing wrong with thinking that either, because I'm still on the fence. You know, I believe that the universe is conscious, and I believe in the archetypal patterns and how things are reflected in the large and the small, and how we really are a miniature, you know, universe, if you will. And that my thought is that we can understand a hell of a lot more than we do, but that we don't need to. And that's where I think that we need to realize. That's what I mean about, you know, you can pick up on signs and signals, and you can live on hearing patterns and speaking in tongues. The question is, how does that serve you? But much more than that, how does that serve people around you? Because I think that this is something that a lot of folks don't consider when they get into, say, you know, maybe they have a few synchronicities and get into a big new age movement, and it becomes their obsession, and then they start pushing people out who aren't awake or aware enough yet, or you'll wake up one day, you'll understand it. Especially when it's younger folks, you know, maybe kids in their 20s who are telling people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, oh, you know, you just never got it, you know, you guys grew up in a different generation. What many of these younger people will find out is, as you get older, trying to fool yourself and make up little stories to explain why the universe is the way it is, they fall flat, and often they don't hold water. This is why people go to religion, because when they start to lose faith, they can go talk to other people of that religion and help to boost up and, you know, get them back to a faithful state. And I don't knock religion anymore. I used to, because it's not religion that I'm opposed to. It's dogma at the cost of other people's freedoms. It's dogma that says, I'm better than you because my God accepts me. You know, the thing that always bothered me about Christians is the way that many of them, not all, but look down on people who aren't Christians as saying, oh, you're just going to hell. And I think, you know, shouldn't that be your mission to prevent that? And of course it is for a lot, and they become evangelists, and this is where religion becomes a problem. It's not whether people believe, it's when they push their ideas on others. And, you know, going to other countries, going into the jungle in the Congo, finding tribes and forcing them to convert into Christianity, because here come these white guys with all this great stuff, and they must know what they're talking about. But they don't see how, you know, how we've only had our society running this way for a few hundred years in this country, and how other cultures have lived for several thousands of years, or if not tens of thousands of years. You know, it's like tribes in Australia, and they've done fine. You know, humans make it by. We adjust to our environment. I believe that, and you know, of course, many of these cultures, many of these people, they also believe in these patterns, that you can see this repeated throughout all different cultures, large and small, that people pick up on signs from the heavens or from within, whether they sit in an ashram or they meditate out under a Bodhi tree or whatever it might be. Everybody's after the same thing. It's a little bit of contentment, but a little bit of understanding of the balance, that life isn't suffering, life is, you know, like, heard somebody saying the other day, that, you know, earlier, he was talking about the fear of death, and how it's not the fear of death that most people have, but the fear of the dying process. And the first thing that came to mind was, you're already dying. As soon as you're born, you're dying, you know, that's the process. We are in the process. Part of the suffering is happening right now. You know, so if you have to suffer for a few weeks or a day or a year or whatever it might be at the end of your life, so be it. It's not going to compare to all the misery you've had now. You have to embrace the misery now and make it into something great for yourself. And this means looking at these synchronicities, the coincidences, and asking if you can create something meaningful out of it for yourself. You know, I could sit here and tell you this is what I believe and this is what you should believe, but that's not how it is, and that's not how I feel. I don't just believe things. I have a lot of different ideas about, you know, the future, as far as what we could do as humanity. You know, it's not about abandoning religion or abandoning these connections we have. It's about embracing them and finding out which ones are strength, which ones are weakness, and how we can know the difference. You know, and I think that's key to our survival. But I don't think that humans are going anywhere. You know, I don't believe anymore in that we're going to be able to completely annihilate ourselves. That, you know, there's enough humanity within us. I don't even like to use that term because that has to be defined. There's enough of a natural understanding within each of us that I believe that most people are good, and most people want a good future for themselves, their children, others around them. And then people just grow frustrated because they don't understand what's going on, that they don't have a book about how to live life, and that leaves them hanging on whatever they can find. Us, not they, we. And it leaves all of us hanging on whatever we can find. People go through major depressive episodes, major anxiety episodes. People lose loved ones and get ill, and I've been there. You know, I lost my father when I was 15. I went through a depressive stage when I was in my late teens that I didn't even realize until later. I always had acne when I was a kid, so I was constantly picked on, you know, and then I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Fortunately, I met my wife and have a wonderful family, but then I said, well, I got to be a carpenter, so I, you know, started my own construction business. Then my back gave out because of sciatica, and then I was introduced to, you know, sitting on my ass, not being able to do anything again. Started the herb business, yada yada. I'm moving forward, but I'm always in this state of kind of limbo. That don't be fooled by, you know, the guy sitting behind the camera here is, oh man, I wish I could figure that, you know, there's people out there who obviously think that I have a shitty life and they don't like me, because I met a lot of those people. And then there's people who think I have this great life that, oh, I wish I could have, you know, be that happy. And I just want to point this out, that that's not how it is. That that's not the real me. That this is the real me. But that I'm not just a happy person because I have all this luck in life. I work hard at it, and I take what I get, you know, with a grain of salt. I don't overly feel like, oh, I've earned this, I deserve it, or, you know, treat myself and say, well, you know, it's all about getting the most out of life or whatnot. Like, you know, I've had hard times. I've lived hand to mouth and check to check, you know, much of my life, so I know what it's like. And first world problems are not little problems. You know, I watched a video where somebody was talking about this the other day. It was a little philosophy video about the fact that pretty soon all of these first world problems, as we call them, those will be full world problems, because every smaller culture that's growing wants to aspire to what, say, America has, or some of these great countries. They want more stuff. They want to be able to have fun and go to the park when they want and take more time off, and you know, who can blame them? Nobody wants to work 50, 60 hours a week and come home and not be able to see your family, and you know. But the thing is, we think that it's going to be easier if we have more time, and that's what we've found now, is that we have almost too much time to think, and that allows us to wander off into some strange places in our minds. So, to return full circle to the synchronicities here, you know, there are very few channels that I really watch on YouTube. It's mainly just for lack of, I guess, lack of time, even though I can't really use that one. It's just the choice of what to watch with the time. So I'm not as interested. Some people, you know, everybody's got their things that they're interested in. I spread myself very thin when it comes to knowledge and information. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and I love to know about everything I can. But it's for the sake of sharing what I can learn with other people, because it makes me feel good inside when somebody else can pull themselves up out of their rut and say, okay, I just needed this little boost, or this idea, or this will help me. And that's arrogance maybe on my part to believe I'm helping people, but that's what keeps me going, because others tell me that something I said to them, you know, helped them, or really through a really tough time. It makes me feel good inside. Why? Is it arrogance? No, maybe. I don't know. I think it's just we mistaken arrogance and feeling good as if it's a bad thing, you know, just like pride, okay? People say pride comes before the fall. It can, but pride is a direct resistance. It's a direct opposite to self-criticism and, you know, self-doubt. That we know we've done something good, we deserve to take pride in that, because that's what pushes us forward. It's kind of like innovation. Like my buddy and I were talking about society the other day, and he said that, you know, that big companies that make too much money should, you know, give that and spread it out more. He was comparing the Waltons and Walmart to, you know, say other companies that do donate. And I said, but you cannot force a company to do this. You cannot make a law that forces a company to give money to others, because they'll just take their money elsewhere. In other words, we can't force each other to be kind to one another. We can't force each other to be altruistic. What we have to do as a society is say, this is what we want, this is how we expect people to behave, and if you don't, you'll be shamed. And that sounds, you know, harsh. I've had people say, well, you can't just shame people for being selfish. No, you can't. But you can, in the sense that you can just say, well, you live that way, I hope it works for you, but I get much more satisfaction out of seeing other people doing well, because I can only do so well myself. If I've got food, if I've got love, I'm fed, I have a roof over my head, I'm doing pretty damn good, gotta say. So, but you know, yeah. It's all these things that I talk about, so many different things, and I kind of forget where I was at a certain point in my life. Like I woke up this morning and got a notification from YouTube, first one I've had in years. It said that they put a strike on my account. Of course, if you get 3 strikes, they shut your account down. And there was a time when I had uploaded a few videos that they back then they would give you a strike if it had like copyrighted stuff in it. I had a few Alan Watts lectures. Well, now they just put ads on those videos, and you know, you don't get a strike for it. So they put a strike on my video that was called DMT and DMT and Syrian rue seeds. It wasn't even about how to consume it. It was just informative video about DMT. I you know, opposed, of course, the strike, and we'll see what happens. But it got me thinking about what people consider to be valuable content. You know, if it's drug related, if it's something that may be dangerous, you know, we become so sensitive to it. All the information needs to be out there to make proper decisions. So being honest with one another and being honest with the information can be difficult, because people are afraid of saying the wrong thing, or, you know, especially when you're, it's the same thing that happens in media. You know, people want to do a news report on something, but the boss won't let them because it's controversial, and that their funds and their, you know, advertisers won't pay if they talk. You know, the whole world's become like, you know, tell me what I want to hear. And so my thought is that if we pick up on some of these synchronicities, maybe it allows us to connect to people who Because it doesn't happen with just anyone. It's always within these certain groups of people. And often it's with like-minded individuals, which, of course, you know, maybe that's why it's a synchronicity. But, I don't know, just thoughts to ponder. You know, maybe there's a deeper pattern underlying this all that we really can understand if we're just look at the signs and, you know, follow our hearts without getting into the whole new age, I can manifest whatever I want without doing anything, because that's nonsense. But so that's it. That's my ramble for the morning. Peace and love, and I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day.